Coming up on Network Africa, U.S. drone strike kills top Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in Kabul, bringing a sense of closure to many Kenyan victims of 1998 Nairobi U.S. Embassy bombing. The Democratic Republic of Congo to discuss withdrawal of United Nations peacekeepers from the country. Plus, health crisis in Ghana as the country confirms its first monkeypox and Marburg virus deaths. Hello and welcome to the program today. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Anne Nwawadu. We begin with the United States President Joe Biden confirming the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri, the leader of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, in a drone strike. Ayman was one of the masterminds behind the twin bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi, Kenya, and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania 24 years ago. The twin attacks on the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania was one of Al-Qaeda's earliest attacks and caused over 200 deaths on the same day. Mr. Biden says the Al-Qaeda leader was killed in a counter-terrorism operation carried out by the CIA in the Afghan capital of Kabul on Sunday. Al-Qaeda leader and Osama bin Laden plotted the 9/11 attacks together, and he was one of America's most wanted terrorists.
At my direction, the United States successfully concluded an airstrike in Kabul, Afghanistan that killed the emir of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Now, justice has been delivered, and this terrorist leader is no more. That no matter how long it takes, no matter where you hide, if you are a threat to our people, the United States will find you and take you out. And 1 week ago, after being advised that the conditions were optimal, I gave the final approval to go get him. And the mission was a success. None of his family members were hurt, and there were no civilian casualties. When I ended our military mission in Afghanistan almost a year ago, I made the decision that after 20 years of war, the United States no longer needed thousands of boots on the ground in Afghanistan to protect America from terrorists who seek to do us harm. And I made a promise to the American people that we continue to conduct effective counterterrorism operations in Afghanistan and beyond. We've done just that.
In the meantime, Kenya says the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri has brought a sense of closure to victims injured in Al-Qaeda's bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi 24 years ago. Spokesperson of Kenyan Victims Association, Douglas Sidielu, termed the killing an act of God. However, adds that the damages to Kenyan families or victims of those injured in the attack had not been paid. This is despite a promise by Mr. Joe Biden in 2010 when he was vice president to look into the issue of compensation during a visit to Nairobi. Mr. Sidiele, who became blind as a result of the explosion, adds that Americans should rise up to the occasion and see to it that the Kenyan victims are compensated and to ensure the human rights of Kenyans are addressed just as much as the Americans. Let's bring in security analyst David Otto. He joins us virtually from London, the United Kingdom. Hello, David.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's begin with the horrific incident that happened 24 years ago, especially that was August the 7th, 1998, where hundreds of people were killed in the Al-Qaeda bombing of the U.S. embassies, both in Kenya and in Tanzania. Do you really think the death of this terrorist leader has finally given them closure? I'm asking again, has justice been truly served? Because, I mean, many are still suffering the effects of that fateful day.
And I think I do agree partly. I think, of course, some victims will see the death of Ayman al-Zawahiri as some level of closure, but reminded that, there were so many Al-Qaeda leaders that were involved in that planning and execution of the 1998 bombings in Kenya and Tanzania. Therefore, I think, partly people will feel that, okay, yeah, this is some level of closure, but there's a lot of victims out there, especially in Kenya and Tanzania, who feel that there has been some level of discrimination in terms of some of the promises that were made, for compensation. Others have said, it got to the point where even the 335 million US dollars that was paid by Sudan to victims, was not equally shared. Some US citizens and embassy staff, got about 3 million each. But some of the African, local staff, only got about 400,000 US dollars. There has been some level of discrimination, but more than 5,000 people were injured, and just about 85 families have been compensated so far. So it's not really a closure in that sense, but one leader down, it's good news.
Which brings me to my next question. I mean, it's interesting to know that this is coming under the Joe Biden administration as U.S. president this year, 2022. But let's recall 2010. As vice president under Barack Obama, he and his wife had visited Nairobi to commiserate with victims. And he also made a promise at that visit to look into the issue of compensation for victims. But 12 years later, many people are still complaining the damages have not been paid for. I mean, this should raise old questions on when this will be paid, isn't it?
Yes, it will raise questions. And let's be very clear. I mean, the reason why these victims are asking for compensation from the US, it's because, of course, they argue that the Al-Qaeda networks were targeting the US embassies, and therefore the impact, of this attack had nothing to do with them. And of course, because they are victims, they strongly believe that the U.S. should compensate them, and that's the same passing on of the, of the buck, as I may call it, that the U.S. did with Sudan and accused Sudan of harboring Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Therefore, the payments that Sudan made just last year in 2021 was meant to go to some of these victims. But again, the key question again is, how many victims have been compensated? And, it's still the issue of the majority of the victims strongly arguing that U.S. citizens have been favored. And therefore, some of them have turned to their national governments. Of course, the government is also passing it back to the U.S. So the promise was good, but I don't think, they will see much more than what they've already received so far. Biden may have moved on from that. He will say that the killing of Ayman al-Zawahiri is some kind of compensation and closure enough. But, do the victims feel the same? I don't know about that.
Well, so now that the Al-Qaeda leader is dead, will this have an impact on the fight against insurgency in West and East Africa, especially where these terrorists are known to operate?
I think one thing that has been argued by academics and analysts is that leadership decapitation has its own impact. But, in the case of Al-Qaeda, they established a very strong franchise. They've got Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. They've got Ansaru, which is based in Nigeria. They've got Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. So, it's a very decentralized terrorist organization, and even the Al-Qaeda branch in the Sahel, which is very focused on Mali, they do not very much rely on the leadership from Afghanistan as it may. The Somali branch as well does not do the same. So I doubt there will be some direct impact in terms of the operations of Al-Qaeda. There are many leaders, about 4 of them, I think, that may succeed Ayman al-Zawahiri, and 2 of them perhaps are coming, one from Al-Shabaab's Somalia and the other from perhaps Algeria. So it's still not going to make any long-term impact. They will simply replace him as he did replace Osama bin Laden.
All right, thank you very much, security analyst David Otter. Thank you so much for your time all the way from London.
Thank you.
Moving ahead now, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo says the payment of Reparations to Africans for the damage caused by the slave trade centuries ago is long overdue. In a series of tweets, he reiterated a speech he made at a summit on reparations and racial healing that laid out the case for money to be paid to the African continent. He says the slave trade effects were devastating to the continent and the diaspora, and that the entire slavery period stifled Africa's economic, cultural, and psychological progress. According to the United Nations, the transatlantic slave trade, which affected millions of Africans, was the largest forced migration in history and one of the most inhumane. Let's head to health matters now. The health authorities in Ghana have confirmed the first death from the monkeypox virus in the current outbreak. The infected person was a military officer who died 3 days after going to hospital in northeastern Ghana. Health officials say the deceased had exhibited symptoms of fever and skin rash. 13 people who are believed to have come in contact with the man who died are in isolation, and they are being currently monitored. Authorities say they have initiated the necessary measures, including heightening surveillance and awareness creation to contain the spread of the virus. Ghana has so far recorded over 30 cases of the virus in 7 regions of the country. Meanwhile, a baby has died of Marburg in Ghana as health authorities clarify the figures of those killed by the virus that is from the same family as Ebola. This brings to 2 the total number of people who have died in Ghana in the current outbreak. The 14-month-old father has said was the first person to have died in the country, while the baby's mother had tested positive for the virus but is alive and well. And that's according to government, who says she is receiving care in an isolation center to prevent further spread of the illness. Another patient thought to have died of Marburg was later confirmed negative, and that's after a post-mortem test revealed that the 51-year-old man did not, in fact, have that disease. The disease is highly infectious. It is similar to Ebola, causing fever, muscle pains, diarrhea, vomiting, and even in some cases, deaths through extreme blood loss. Over in the Democratic Republic of Congo, UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric says that the United Nations is totally committed to peace and coordinating with Congolese armed forces to help solve the ongoing security situation and bring about stability in the eastern region. Speaking at news briefing in New York, said the Secretary General expressed his outrage following Sunday's incident where at least 2 civilians were killed. 15 others were injured in that attack after the UN peacekeepers opened fire at the Kansindi border post.
The Secretary General spoke this morning to President Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC. In the conversation, the Secretary General conveyed his condolences and also apologized for his incident, which involved UN peacekeepers and took place in Kasindi on the border of the DRC and Uganda. The Secretary General said that the United Nations is totally committed to peace and to coordinating with Congolese armed forces and working with the FARDC to solve the situation and bring about stability in the eastern DRC. Effective dialogue is needed, he said. And for that to happen, we demand the unconditional withdrawal of the M23 group and call on all armed groups to cease all forms of violence. The Secretary General expressed his outrage following the incident that I just referred to. He also stressed in the strongest terms the need to establish accountability for those events and welcomed the decision by the special representative, his special representative in the DRC, Bintou Keita, to detain the mission personnel involved in the incident and to immediately open an investigation. He notes that the UN...
In the meantime, the government spokesperson Patrick Muyaya says the Democratic Republic of Congo is expected to hold talks with the UN mission in the country on the withdrawal of peacekeepers that will meet the demand of the people. This announcement is coming after President Felix Tshisekedi chaired a meeting with the presidents of the two chambers of parliament, the Prime Minister, and officials from the eastern North Kivu province. Deadly protests demanding MONUSCO's expulsion erupted in the North Kivu's capital, Goma, on the 25th of July this year and have since spread. Activists are accusing the UN mission of failing to stop a decade-long rebellion in the east. Still ahead of the program. South Africa sees increase in rhino poaching. Details in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The wife of a Nigerian street trader who was killed in Italy says that she is seeking justice following his painful death. Her husband, 39-year-old Aliko Ogochukwu, was killed, reportedly selling handkerchiefs in the seaside town of Civitanova on Friday when he was chased and beaten to death. The 32-year-old Italian has been arrested on suspicion of murder and robbery. A video circulating online shows a man on top of Ogochukwu punching him with his bare hands. None of those who witnessed the broad daylight attack appeared to intervene. Ms. Charity Oriachi said that she had received help in coming to terms with her husband's death, but was tired of talk now. She was only interested in justice, she insisted. She says that her family had lived in Italy for a long time, stressing that her husband had never sought any trouble. Well, joining us now is Sabina Castelfranco, the VOA's correspondent in Italy. She joins us via Skype from Rome. Thank you very much, Sabina, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, what is the update at this time since news about the death of this Nigerian man broke?
Well, the 32-year-old Italian man who was responsible for the death of the Nigerian street vendor was taken into custody immediately after the incident occurred. He is still in custody, and investigations are going on to try to ascertain exactly the dynamics and exactly why this occurred. Now, it appears from what we know so far that the street vendor, the Nigerian, was very insistent in trying to sell some handkerchiefs, some tissues, to this couple, and grabbed the partner of the man who then, in fact, killed the Nigerian by the arm. And this obviously did not make him very happy. The man basically grabbed the Nigerian, threw him onto the ground, used a crutch that the Nigerian was using to walk to finish him off. He really didn't have a chance, and it was all very, very quick, and there were many people standing by, and no one apparently, as you said, intervened in any way whatsoever. By the time the authorities arrived, the Nigerian man had been killed, and he had lost his life.
Now, as sad as this incident is, there have been many condemnations on this death, both in Nigeria and in Italy. Talk to us about what is known of authorities' investigation at this time and how seriously they are taking this issue.
Well, it appears it's not a racially motivated attack, or at least that's what the police have said. They are taking the incident very seriously. Obviously, there are elections in this country very, very soon on the 25th of September, and it appears that the right wing is strongly favored to win these elections. The right wing is obviously in great disfavor of migrants and wants migrants out of this country. This is a man, however, this Nigerian street vendor who had been in Italy for a long time, over 8 or 9 years, and he was here legally. He had legal papers to remain in this country. He had never had any trouble with police or with the authorities here. He had been run over by a car a year ago as he was riding his bicycle, and that is the reason why he had a crutch, and he was helping himself walk around with a crutch. But basically, I think we're going to be seeing more racially motivated attacks, although the police says this was not a racially motivated attack. In the month or in the coming days and weeks leading up to the elections, precisely because those favored to win these national elections in Italy are those that want migrants out of this country.
Now, the wife of the deceased said that she has received help in coming to terms with her husband's death, which is very difficult, and now she just wants justice, to know the suspect's motive at least. Has the police been able to establish that, the motive of the suspected murder and also even his identity?
Well, his identity, absolutely, yes. They know he's a 32-year-old. They have a name. They have apprehended him. He is in jail at the moment. Now, the motive remains unclear. I mean, it remains to be clarified and further investigated. The police has only said, as I mentioned before, that this was not a racially motivated attack. It could be the fact that the street vendor grabbed onto this man's partner by the arm that really bothered him. But of course, you know, you don't go around killing people because someone grabs you by the arm. So I think there's going to be much further investigations taking place. I think the police is going to go through the video that has been handed over with regards to the incidents. I think it's early days yet to understand exactly what motivated this killing.
We also understand that one of the Italian citizens' lawyer intends to file a psychiatric report claiming that his client has psychiatric issues. Has this been confirmed?
Well, it hasn't been confirmed as such. However, the lawyer of the man did say that this was the intention on the side of the defense attorneys. This was said once. There has been no further confirmation, and of course it will take some time before such a psychiatric report is filed. So it remains to be seen whether in fact this will happen or not.
If we recall, 4 years ago, a man draped in an Italian flag shot 6 African immigrants in Makarata, just less than 20 miles from where Ogochukwu was killed. What other reactions have we seen, especially from the Nigerian community in Italy?
Well, the Nigerian community has been very angry with, obviously, that incident in Macerata and also the current incident that occurred on Friday. And on Saturday, the Nigerians came out en masse to demonstrate against this latest killing. The Nigerian embassy in Rome has been very careful to say everybody should remain calm and, you know, people should not take justice into their own hands. The Nigerian government has also reacted, of course, and the Italian authorities have made clear that everything will be done to ascertain what happened in this incident. But certainly the Nigerian community is not happy in Italy. They feel they have been targeted more than once, and this is just the latest of incidents.
Thank you very much, Sabina Castelfranco. She's VOA's correspondent in Italy. Thank you so much for your time on Network Africa.
Thank you.
Now, all right. Over in South Africa now, Amnesty International has called for calm following violent protests which left 4 people dead in Tembisa, that's east of Johannesburg. Thousands of residents took to the streets on Monday protesting over the lack of basic services and high electricity tariffs. Demonstrators blocked off several roads with burning tires, bricks and rubble, and a police station was also set ablaze. It's alleged that protesters who died were caught in crossfire between the police and demonstrators. Amnesty International has said the swift action against those responsible for the deaths of the protesters must be taken. Still in South Africa's Environment Minister says the country has seen an increase in the number of rhinos illegally killed for their horns. 10 more rhinos were poached countrywide in the first half of this year. That's when you compare it to the same period last year. That took the total of 259 of them. Environment Minister Barbara Creasy said that there had been a shift away from poachers hunting in the world's famous Kruger National Park, where there's been an increase in conservation efforts and vigilance. In a statement, it says that most rhinos this year have been killed in private reserves and the KwaZulu-Natal province. Around half the total number of the endangered black rhinos on the African continent are found in South Africa. It's also home to the world's largest population of white rhinos, whose status is near threatened. Rhino poaching often involves both local poachers and international criminal syndicates who smuggle the horns across borders. And that's Network Africa today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Wang.